Hello, and welcome back to Life Lessons with Mr. D. We're continuing our unit on cars and driving, and this time we're going to talk about emergency repairs, things you absolutely need to know to drive a car. These are repairs you're not planning on having, they're going to catch you by surprise, and what you know and what you do in the moment can really determine the success or failure of the situation. First things first, we're going to talk about jump starting a car. Your car's battery will die. It's not going to last as long as the car does. It's only a matter of when, and you never know when it's going to die. So you always need to keep jumper cables in your trunk, in your car, ready to go. And in addition to being prepared for yourself, that means you can help other people too and be a nice person. Whenever you're doing anything related to your car, especially when it's some sort of maintenance or repair, you need to follow the instructions and be safe the whole time. So here's what to do. One of the vehicles will be dead, and the good news is usually car batteries die when the car is sitting still, when it's been parked somewhere. So hopefully that car is already in a safe place and you're good to go. You just need to get another vehicle and drive it up front to front, facing each other. Now, if you can't because the first car is in a situation that doesn't provide that room, you may need to actually push that car somewhere in order to get them to do that. But put them in facing each other, bumper to bumper, front to front, in park, or if it's a manual transmission, in neutral. In either case, you're going to want the parking brakes on. Both engines should be off, even if you had to drive the donor vehicle over to get to this. And you have to do it in a specific order. We'll talk about the order in just a second. One other note is that the vehicle that has the live battery that's donating its power should have at least as much power as the dead battery, at least as much voltage. If your friend's F350 Super Duty has a dead battery, don't think that you can take your smart car and jumpstart the battery. It's just not going to work. Also, if you have an electric vehicle, then you are not part of this conversation at all. Electric vehicles should not be used to jumpstart other vehicles, and they cannot be jumpstarted by other vehicles. That's when you could just call roadside assistance and you have them help you out. This only works on standard regular vehicles. So here's your order. On car batteries and on the jumper cables, they'll be color coded. So the red cables will be the positive cables and the black cables will be the negative cables. And so you take the red cable on the red terminal, so positive cable, positive terminal on the dead battery. Step number one, red on dead. Then, step number two, you take the red cable, which is the positive cable, and you connect it to the positive terminal, the red terminal, of the donor car, the car with the live battery. So red on dead, red on live. Then you take the black cable and you connect it to the live battery on the negative terminal. Step number three, black cable, the negative cable to the negative terminal on the good batteries car. And then step four is where we often get something wrong. You want to put the negative cable, the black cable, on part of the metal around the car, part of the car frame, bare metal, preferably something that's not painted, definitely something that's somewhere around the engine, like an engine brace or something, not, exterior piece of the car. If there's a power surge, then this is your ground. This is what's going to keep things from going really poorly. And so you don't want to put that on anything that's going to be exposed on the outside of the vehicle. Once you have that connection done, step five is you start the vehicle with the good battery. And you're going to let that run for a little while. Some cars, the battery is just barely too weak for it to start the car. And so you're only going to want to let it sit there for a few minutes, turn the vehicle on, and it'll start right away. In other cases, you may have to let the donor vehicle's engine run for several minutes, but usually somewhere around 2 minutes or maybe up to 5 minutes would be enough. At that point, try to start the dead car's battery. If it doesn't start, if it seems like it gets close to starting but doesn't quite work, then you can let the vehicle, from the donor vehicle, let the engine run for a little bit longer, or even have the driver kind of lightly press on the gas pedal. Of course, they're still in park with the parking brake on. We don't want the cars to run into each other. But they can lightly press on the gas pedal and just send a little bit more power to the dead car. After a few more minutes, try it again. If it's been connected for 6 or 8 or 10 minutes and it's still not charged, then unfortunately this isn't the solution. So if you've been going for that amount of time, either both cars are now running or it's something that's not going to get fixed like this. So in either case, you're done. And you're going to remove them in the reverse order from how you started. So step 4, you remove the negative cable on the dead battery. And then step 3, the negative cable on the good battery. And then the positive cable on the good battery. And then the positive cable on the dead battery. Once you've taken the cables, then you can lower the hoods and move on. Either drive away or call a tow truck or have someone go get a new battery for you if you think that that's the issue. I have had my car battery die, in which case it died so hard. It had a dead cell. It could not be jump started. It could not be charged at all. So the battery was the problem, but a jump start didn't fix it. I just had to replace the battery. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's something else. It's the starter or the alternator. So at that point, you're looking at other solutions. So like I said, you let the engine run for a few minutes. You start the bad car. And if it starts, you're great. At that point, you want to drive the bad car for 10 or 15 minutes at least before you have to turn it off, because driving the car is going to help recharge the battery a little bit as well. If you get your car jump started and it starts and then you turn it immediately off, it probably won't start up again. You'll have to get it jump started again. I would recommend that either if you jump started it and it worked, or you jump started it and it didn't work, I would recommend the very next stop to be go to some sort of auto parts store and have them test the battery. If it didn't start, they can test the battery and see if the battery was the problem, and they can sell you a new battery. If it did start, they can test the battery and see, is your car going to die again? If your battery is barely hanging on, you just need to replace it, because it's not worth the trouble of your car dying, especially if it dies while you're driving. The battery is not cheap, but it's one of the cheapest things you can do to replace something on a car that won't start. So start there on your diagnosis of what's wrong with the car. Now, the other thing that's going to happen to a lot of people is changing a flat tire. Now, just like with dead batteries, a lot of flat tires happen when you're sitting still. You have a slow leak and the battery started to just lose a little bit of air, and before you know it, it's flat. And it happened when your car was sitting in a parking lot or a driveway or a garage and you didn't notice it. That's okay. That's the best case scenario, and even though it's not fun, you can do it. Sometimes the battery goes flat when you're driving and it suddenly pops. We call those blowouts. If you have a blowout, the biggest thing to keep in mind is to try not to panic. You want to keep a firm grip on the wheel, take your foot off of the gas, don't slam on your brakes, and try to coast somewhere safe, just letting the momentum of the car carry you. Obviously, if you're about to hit another car, you'll need to apply your brakes, but if you slam on your brakes, it's possible that you'll put so much pressure on the blown out tire that you'll lose the entire tire and just drive on the rims. That would be very bad for a number of reasons, and one of which is that it's going to be really hard to stop your car without a tire. So try to just coast somewhere safe. If you can slap your hazard lights on so that people understand that that's going on, that's even better. For really bad blowouts, everyone's going to see it. Everyone's going to hear it. There will be pieces of tire shrapnel flying all over the place. And most likely people will do a good job to get out of your way. So that's great. Your car will also jerk and bump a lot, and it'll probably jerk in the direction of the flat tire. So you can use that sort of momentum to try to just coast you off to the side. If you need to apply the gas and drive a little bit, then that's good. You can still do that. Just be very gentle about it. What you shouldn't do is just stop in the middle of the road. That's not going to be safe for anybody. You do need to try to get your way off of the main road into the shoulder or a parking lot or just the side of a road that's a little bit less busy, somewhere safe. If you cannot get to a safe place to change your tire, do not do it. Do not change your tire sitting in the middle of the lane on the freeway. Just don't do it. Call 911 and ask them to help you out. They'll tow your car or block off traffic or something. But it's better if you can try to drive somewhere safe, a short distance. So once you're to that safe place, you want to put your car in park, put the parking brake on. Definitely use the parking brake. It's going to help you out. If you're not on at least kind of level ground, it's going to be really dangerous to try to change your tire. So try to find your way to someplace that's relatively level. If you were on the freeway and you had to pull off to the side of the road and it's a really steep slope or slant, then try to slowly drive somewhere else. Because changing a tire on unlevel ground means there's a chance that the tire falls off of the jack and it can fall and crash on whoever's doing it. So it's very dangerous. Find level ground. Once you've done that, get your spare items, which are probably going to be in your trunk. They might be under a trunk liner. Some vehicles, SUVs and trucks, may have them underneath the vehicle in the back, but behind the rear bumper. Some vehicles have them on the back. Jeeps will often have them on the back. So just wherever it is, find your spare tire. And with your spare tire will come a jack and a lug wrench. For bonus points, you can even try to find a brick or a rock or something to stick behind the wheel to further immobilize the car. That's a nice little extra thing if you can do it, but often you're not in a situation where you can. So, your spare tire is going to be usually a smaller tire than the rest of your tires. That is okay. They do that to take up less space in the vehicle and to make things easier to change. Your wrench or your lug wrench can look a couple of different ways. Sometimes they look like an X or a cross. Sometimes they look like an L. In any case, either one should be fine. And then there's a few different styles of jacks. The kind that you see on the screen right now is the kind that comes with a lot of vehicles. They're very small, and you turn a crank in the middle, and then the crank raises and lowers the vehicle on that sort of diamond shape. So here's your steps. If you have a hubcap, you're going to need to remove your hubcap. If you've just got your regular wheel without a hubcap, you don't have to do it. You're going to have lug nuts. These are the nuts that hold the wheel onto the axle. And you're going to start loosening them using your lug wrench, and you're going to start just loosen them a tiny, tiny bit, just enough that they start to move. If they've been put on with a pneumatic tool from a tire shop, they may be quite challenging to loosen. So you might have to put a foot on the lug wrench to try to maneuver it, try to apply a little extra pressure. I even was changing a tire one time where I had to stand on the lug wrench in order to apply the pressure to get it loose. But you're just going to want to do it enough to get them started moving. Don't try to take them off yet. Start on one and then go to the opposite side so that it forms a little star pattern with the the other lug nuts. If you loosen them in order, like in a clockwise or counterclockwise pattern, sometimes that can cause the wheel to tip a little bit and it makes it harder to undo the rest. So once they're loosened, then you take your jack and you place it somewhere against the frame. Not on something plastic or fiberglass, but on a piece of metal. Now, typically, just to the inside of the wheel well, just to the inside of the cutout where the wheels sit in the car, is a piece of frame that's specifically designed to place a jack. That's going to be just behind the front wheels or just in front of the back wheels. Some cars even have a little metal piece sticking out there that fits like a puzzle piece into the jack, and that helps immobilize the jack and it keeps it more secure. So find that piece of metal, it's part of the car's frame, raise up the jack until you line it up in the right spot, and then continue raising it up just enough that there's a little space of air below the flat tire. Keeping in mind that the tire you're putting on is smaller than the tire you're taking off, so you don't have to raise it up super, super high. Once you've raised the car up, then you can finish loosening the lug nuts. You started loosening them before you raised the car up so that you could use the car's weight to immobilize the wheel when you're applying all of that extra pressure, and you didn't have to worry about the car balancing on a jack while you did it. So it's an easier and safer way to do that. But now that they've been loosened and you raised your car up, now you can finish taking them all off. I should note that you should never, ever, ever get underneath a car after it's been raised up with a jack. Never, ever, ever. That's super, super dangerous to do, because if it falls off the jack, it's going to land on you. So it's very important that you don't drop anything, any of the lug nuts or your tools or your phone or anything like that underneath the car while it's on the jack. Once you have removed the flat tire, you take your spare tire and you put it on the on where the flat tire was, and you do everything in the same idea but the reverse order. You tighten the lug nuts in a star pattern, then you lower the car until the tire touches the ground, and then you tighten them again with the star pattern and take out the jack. You've finished you've taken the jack all the way off, you've lowered it all the way down, you're good. As you do this on a rear tire, it's exactly this process. But most cars that have the smaller tires, the donut tires, those are a little bit different if you try to put them on the front. So let's talk about those donut tires. They're sometimes called 40-mile tires, meaning they can be driven at about 40 miles an hour for about 40 miles before they start to act a little weird and have a chance of failing. They're going to have decreased handling, decreased stability, decreased braking and acceleration. They're not meant to be a permanent solution, and they shouldn't be on your tire for very long. And here's what I was mentioning a second ago. They're only designed to go on the rear because your front tires do most of the power and braking. They do most of the work. If you put one of these small spare tires on the front, then you're setting your car up to be very unstable. And speaking as someone who's had some experience there, it's much more likely to go flat if you put it on the front. And now you have two flat tires and no spare, and you're stranded. So what you have to do at this point is put a good tire on the back and the spare tire, or a good tire on the front, I should say, and the spare tire on the back. So if I have a flat tire in my front, then I get to put the spare tire on the back on a perfectly good tire, then take that perfectly good tire and put that good tire on the front. So I get to change two tires. But again, speaking from experience, it's better to change those two tires and have a drivable car than to put the spare tire on the front and then get a flat tire in the front and be stranded somewhere. When you're finished, you take all the stuff that you did, including the flat tire, and you put it all in your trunk. I've seen people leave their flat tires on the side of the road, which is crazy because the wheel that it's attached to is quite expensive. And the flat tire might even be fixable. You don't know until you really take a chance and look at it. So you put it all in your trunk. Um, Go somewhere where you can check the air pressure on your spare tire and air it up if you need to. A lot of times they'll be low on pressure because they've been sitting in your trunk for so long. And then go to a tire shop and either get a replacement tire or get them to repair that tire. And they'll often change the tires and put everything back in your trunk and all of that for you if you're buying a tire. So that wraps up our emergency repairs. If you have any questions, anything that I didn't address during the video, put them in the comments below, and be on the lookout for our next session, which is about auto accidents. What are you going to do if you're in an auto accident? What are the right steps to make sure that you do everything that's legal and that you do everything that the insurance companies are going to want you to do so that you're not left in an even worse situation? So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you later.